They sat at the beginning of the month, they sat at the end of the month, and they sat all the days in between. Until one day, they heard a sound coming from inside the egg. Peep, 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 it said. Roy and Silo called back. Squawk, squawk. Peep, peep, answered the egg. Suddenly, a tiny hole appeared in the eggshell. And then, crack! Out came their very own baby. She has fuzzy white feathers and a funny black beak, and now Roy and Silo are fathers. Or call her Tango, Mr. Ramsay decided, because it takes two to make a tango. Roy and Silo taught Tango how to sing for them when she was hungry. They fed her food from their beaks. They snuggled her in the nest at night. Tango was the very first penguin in the zoo to have two daddies. Soon, Tango grew strong enough to leave the nest. Roy and Silo took her for a swim, just like all the other penguin families. And all the children came to the zoo could see Tango and her two fathers playing in the penguin house with the other penguins. Hooray, Roy! Hooray, Silo! Welcome, Tango, they all cheered. At night, the three penguins returned to the nest. There they snuggled together, and like all the other penguins in the penguin house, and all the other animals in the zoo, and all the families in the big city around them, they went to sleep.
Good job. The most challenged book in the country right now is And Tango Makes Three. What was your name?
Kate.
Kate?
Yeah,
You
Kate.
get
Kate.
Kate, that's yours now. Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations, by the way, you're all criminals. Because you really are.
I'm literally holding illegal contraband.
Right.
Yes.
You're not supposed to read that book, you're not supposed to have that book, you're not supposed to listen to that book. So if we're going to jail, we're going together, and that's what
I'm going to turn the finger. They'll never take me alive.
Everybody will have a party at the commissary.
We're going to get started in just a minute as soon as our tech guy figures out.
We're gonna watch Tubi.
While we're waiting, I don't know if you guys are aware, Sarah? Is there a Sarah here? Sarah, it's Sarah's birthday, so we're going to start off by singing happy birthday to Sarah.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Sarah. Happy birthday to you.
The stuff I can talk about, I have pictures on my phone.
So that's super helpful if you want to pass around your phone.
Shut my huge phone!
I'm pretty sure, Josh, you find that picture of that on the fly if you need to.
Okay.
You're the moderator.
I am? Oh, yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
All right, they're rolling this.
Double duty, all right. Yeah, we're doing double duty.
Yeah, I thought it was just the PowerPoint guys.
Seriously, that's like, I get a lot to do over here.
All right, come on in.
Next.
Come on in.
Come on in.
Tell me the push button.
No pressure, no pressure.
Just say when.
Oh, Saga, we're going to talk about it.
What these guys are. Never mind enough.
Saga, your band.
No, that's Thor. Almost. The dude?
The dude.
You're reminding? Okay.
I too am I. Welcome, fellow criminals.
They're not criminals yet, they just came in.
Wait, are you the teacher of the year in the school?
Woohoo!
You're not Mrs. B, are you? Are you Mrs. B? Are you Mrs. B? No. No, okay. We heard Mrs. B had her class here on a field trip.
Oh, I saw them, but yeah, no. Mrs. G.
Mrs. G?
Well, in this house, we love and support teachers.
Yes, teachers rule.
All right.
Hello, friends. My name is Josh. We are the Longbox folks and friends. We have a podcast you can hear anywhere podcasts can be found. The Longbox guys. Today we're going to be talking about censorship, mostly around comic books and graphic novels that have been affected by book bans going on, and how things get banned, and maybe why things get banned, and have a little discussion around that by the time we get to the end. I'm going to make sure this thing's working. Is it? Yes. All right. Today I believe we're starting with Tom.
That's me.
Yeah.
All right. Hi everyone, I'm Tom.
Hi, Tom.
I'm up. Oh, different meeting. All right, we're gonna talk a little bit about section of the innocent. Doctor, really?
Yeah, you
You
look
ever
at
check
Doctor,
that
yeah.
out? So Dr. Fred Wortham wrote a terrible book based on almost no science. And that became the Bible for people who wanted to ban bugs. If I say anything wrong, by the way, Mike, you're a better historian than I am, but I'll make sure you go correct me because I don't want to go out any bad information. Most of the stuff that he was quoting and doing in the books, even the statistics and stuff he was doing, he had to be standing up because he pulled them straight out of his ass. He didn't do much on when it came to research. He asked a few people, he talked to some people, but really most of the stuff was just all in his head. He was trying to show how comic books were taking our children down a dark, dark path by showing them criminals and vampires and monsters and deviant sex and even homosexual sex. Ooh, scary. And this extreme violence, some of which he had certain points for. Some of the comic books were kind of ratcheting up at this point, especially some of the horror comics. But not, it wasn't causing mental breakdowns. It certainly wasn't causing any rises in crime or anything. Nothing he could prove anyways. So, like I said, he kind of pulled this out of his butt. That led the comics themselves to want to do something about it before the government intervened, because the government was going down that path. So this led to the Comic Book Code of Authority. Anybody know what that is? Boo. The weirdest and worst part about this was it was all self-imposed. Do you understand what I'm saying? The comic books themselves were the ones enforcing this on themselves. Before you could show, monsters with, scary teeth and stuff like that, and now we had to clean it up, right? And some of that cleaning up was also whitewashing. I remember one comic book where they had an African American in space, and
Judgment Day.
Yeah,
Judgment
we're talking
Day.
about
Judgment
Judgment
Day.
Day. I was talking about Judgment Day.
Judgment Day. Come on up here. Tell me about Judgment Day. It's a great comic.
It's a great
Okay,
comic.
so Judgment Day is a kind of a standalone story comic. Basically, an astronaut goes to this planet to see if it is good enough to get inducted into this Federation of Planets, Star Trek style. But they find out that the robot folks who live on this planet discriminate against each other based on the color of their metal. The green robots hate the red robots. And the astronaut says, I'm sorry, your ideas are too backwards, we cannot accept you into our federation. And then at the end of the comic, he takes off his helmet to reveal that he is a black man, and this comic came out in the 50s and it got banned. Because I don't know if y'all noticed, but there was an allegory in there. It's
Very
really
subtle.
it can go smooth over your head if you're not paying attention. But they were like, but we like our racism. You can't make this comic book.
Now, there's also a slight underpinning of odd sexuality in this particular comic book, which some people didn't notice because of the second time it got censored. They put it through, no, we're going to keep it as African American, and they said, well, can you erase the beads of sweat because it's too sexual? What? He took off his helmet. This was the real thing, by the way. This was the second time they put the comic through. And
They
finally,
were just trying to find a reason.
they were
to
just
get it
trying to
banned.
find reasons to ban it, and they said it's too sexual if an African American man has sweat coming down his neck. There were all kinds of reasons to ban comic books, and there are reasons that I think are legitimate for having discussions with kids before they read certain comic books. But this sort of, ratcheting down on yourselves was too restrictive, and once again, like I said, self-imposed, and it really, really changed comic books. It became the rise of romance comic books. For one thing, it changed the entire industry, and it was kind of a dark time. I think that's the last bit I have on that. Let me just tell you what it couldn't show. It couldn't show crimes in a way that had any sympathy for the criminal. So, if Bonnie and Clyde couldn't go out in a hail of bullets saying I love you to each other. What was that? Lay no miserable.
Sailing bread.
It has to be sorted. Unpleasant policemen and judges can never be shown in a bad light. This was at a time when there were corrupt cops and politicians. I guess it was a different time, right?
Totally.
There's an allegory in there.
I couldn't tell
Good
you.
always has to triumph over evil.
I couldn't
This
tell
made
you.
for some pretty dull comics. Any intense violence had to be prevented, nothing brutal, no torture, no unnecessary knife and gun.
We got quick hide coffee coming.
Even horror and terror were taken out of almost every title. They got around this by printing magazines instead of comic books. You guys might remember the bigger magazines, like horror and Tomb of Terror, had to go to those magazines. That's why, because they weren't under the same authority. Next one. Walking Dead, torture, all of it. None of the stuff, which is fun to read about, and also part of our fantasy lives when it comes to sea monsters and zombies and exaggerated female qualities. All right.
We should bring that back for Rob London.
Yeah,
We should bring that back for Rob for guys too. I mean, he's just
Some of the guys just,
but also feet. Seduction, erection, no suggestion. No perversion of any kind. This even included just light bondage. Who remembers the old Wonder Woman comic books?
The last one.
I mean, very
and
light.
did that include interracial couples as well? That one included, that specific one included interracial couples.
Well, I know it was in there, and it's not on this particular slide, but you're right. We weren't supposed to show interracial couples for a long time. As a matter of fact, we don't show interracial couples in comic books for a very, very,
Very,
long
very
time.
long, very, very long.
One little thing on that, I'll just say is we didn't even get Spider-Man going to school with African Americans in the background. In the background to the 70s. Who was the guy that introduced that? Thank you. It wasn't Stanley, it was a particular artist, Steve Ditko, who started putting African Americans in the background. And someone asked him, like, hey, why are you introducing African Americans in the background into school? And he said, because it's a school in New York. There is no other explanation for that, right?
You bring a Malcolm X comic to the 1950s, everyone will lose
One
their
of the things that it
mind.
also prohibited was any drug use. And in 1970, President Nixon asked Marvel if they could do a comic that involved drug use. So Marvel had an issue with this because it involved going against the comic book authority, but the president asked.
Because
So-
he didn't know how, and he was trying to figure that out.
I think if the president specifically tells you to do something, you get a pass.
So, no?
I mean,
Remember Trump was president.
And remember, this was
Hey,
so.
one wrong.
So,
It was self-done.
so they printed the book without the comic book authority seal on it because it could not be approved by the comic book authority. And then, a year later, Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams wanted to do a book involving drug abuse. And they were like, how did you guys at Marvel get away with this? And they were like, oh, we just took the seal off.
And then it was like the Emperor's clothes.
It
Like,
just
oh.
didn't go through the comic book authority, we just took the seal off.
You mean
And
this
they were like,
completely arbitrary thing that we put on there has absolutely no sticking power because we're doing it to ourselves? Wild.
yeah. And so they did Snowbird's,
The ultimate
No more
thing.
state flag.
which involved Green Arrow's sidekick, Speedy.
Speedy over there, ladies and gentlemen.
Totally clean now.
Speedy
Heroin.
using heroin and getting addicted to heroin, and it talked about the addict's lifestyle in heroin and all of the nastiness associated with that addiction. And it was a several story arc, but they did it because it was important to Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams, and also because they were like, why can't we talk about these social issues? We should be able to. And so they went against the comic book code.
So, we're gonna talk briefly about some of the books that have been challenged in the past. And it's important to reflect on the difference between 2022, 23, and 24, and the rest of history. Because, we talked about the comic book code of authority, which started in the 1950s, and then in the 1970s is when they were like, okay, we really don't need the comic book code of authority anymore, although some companies were still using it, but books were still being challenged. And the way the challenges work is somebody would go into a library, they would see a book, they were like, hey, there's a problem with this book. And they would issue a challenge to it. That is different from what's happening now, but we'll just talk about some of the graphic novels and comic books that were some of the most challenged. And one of them is The Watchmen. And that is because it has sexual assault in it, right? And extreme graphic violence. And so that book has been challenged a number of times, even though it is considered one of the greatest American novels of all time, not just a graphic novel.
Holy art form.
Yes.
And one thing we do like to mention, I like to mention here is, I'm not against having discussions with kids and giving this book out at appropriate ages. Do I want this in the hands of an 8-year-old? No, I don't want this in the hands of an 8-year-old, not unless they're extremely mature or you have a good discussion with them. But that's not censorship, that's, preparing someone for difficult information.
This is The Pride of Baghdad. It is based on a real story, kind of. After the Iraq War, the second one, they bombed Baghdad and a pride of lions escaped. And so Brian K. Vaughan did a novel, a graphic novel about that, and in it, there is a rape scene of a lion raping another lion. And of course, The Killing Joke, again, another Alan Moore graphic novel. Anytime we talk about sexual assault in comics, Alan Moore's name comes up a lot. Somebody should check on him.
We've written. Everything good, Alan?
And of course, this is the implied sexual assault of Batgirl, Barbara Gordon, who gets paralyzed by the Joker. And then Bone is my favorite of the, every time I have a young reader, I give them a copy of Bone. It's a great gateway drug into our hobby. However, it has been challenged because it has bookmaking in it, because at one point there's a cow race.
Gambling. I saw the look at the quizzical.
I just imagine like those Pinterest
I
was thinking Fahrenheit 451.
I know. Was it paper?
But it's actually educational, because if you want to understand how you're going to make money betting on both sides, you got to learn how to do that kind of stuff. It's just math.
So people have done that with Bone?
Yes.
Yeah, both.
And also because it has smoking in it, and
Man, I read that as a preteen. I was shocked some of the things I saw in there. Man, I also remember the scene where the jerk companion character, I forget his name, he walks up to the barkeep. He wants to get some food. The barkeep says 2 eggs, and the companion guy hands a $1 bill.
yes,
Yeah.
they said that's one of the other reasons it was challenged, is because there's anti-capitalism, because they had a barter system.
It's kind of crazy that this censorship has happened in comic books, but when you think about it, if you look through the American literature, most of the American literature is about there were stories about a slave fighting, especially with Frederick Douglass and Eliada. They all go into like specifics about the slavery and what they went through, but they don't ever censor that kind of stuff.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. That's what I was gonna speak about, some of the censorship that happens within the schools and that kind of stuff, and how that happens.
Comic books are easier to censor because the old fogies who are in charge of stuff are like, comics are weird and they're for
And
kids, we
they're
don't
just
like them
for,
anyway.
yeah.
So comic books are a really easy target, so they're easier to get banned and stuff. But they will ban a movie, they will ban a book, they will ban anything that promotes ideas that they find icky.
Yes.
No, the Indians totally got
Yeah,
along with the
I'll talk about this
Pilgrims,
one.
100%, nothing bad happened.
One second, we're gonna have someone who's really gone into this, talk about nappy hair, a
Okay.
book that was banned.
Yes, this is an amazing book. It's called Nappy Hair. It is one of my absolute positive favorite books that my mom Backstory, my mom was a librarian at elementary school for over 30 years, and then she became a third grade teacher, and so I grew up in that kind of environment. But this book is one of the books my mom specifically bought and brought into her third grade class. The reason why it was banned is because a white teacher read it in Texas to her second grade class, and people got upset that she said nappy in description of this child's hair. In the story, the kid is the smartest kid in the school. She is an excellent kid. She is a great person, but she just got some nappy ass hair on her head. It's a very funny, cute story, but the word nappy said by a white teacher in a room full of kids got it banned. As simple as that.
And that's again self-censorship.
Yes.
If you think about it now, because I read an article just lately about Florida banning Wikipedia books, like they're banning dictionaries just now,
Every
and
day.
it's over for like
Every
day.
certain things, and it's kind
You're
of crazy.
stealing my thunder. Right on that.
I'm in college to become a sped teacher, so like I'm learning about all of these stuff, but like it's just crazy that the school system is just banning certain things, especially a dictionary, just because they don't want their kids to read certain things, and it's just crazy. Like you're letting kids not learn. You're basically not letting kids learn.
Don't worry, we're gonna get to that. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, you are very passionate about it. Here is a banned book. It's called Free Water. It is about slaves, and this is one of the banned
Another
books.
banned book.
There you go. Saga. It is banned because it's sexually explicit, and they call it anti-family, which is really weird because it's all about these two just trying to live their life as a family. But I don't know if you can tell from the photo, they are different races.
Yes, more going on
Persepolis has also been challenged just because of this one scene of torture. Although it is a book about a young girl who grew up in Iran during the Iranian Revolution.
Where there was torture going on.
They wanted to ban,
Uh,
they're talking about banning maps, even though it's now.
So
Don't get ahead of us.
So if you're wondering what is fueling the latest challenges, I think you can see it up here. It is themes of violence is what the most challenges are for. Although a lot of it is anything that has an LGBTQ plus character in it is being challenged just for the sake of it. Yes.
Hi, I'm sorry, when you have a moment, can you explain the topics on health and well-being for students category more? Like what exactly is that?
It's mostly being conflated with LGBTQ. A lot of it is being conflated with those.
No, actually, so that's also for characters who are contemplating self-harm.
Yes, and it's more of the parent not wanting to have that conversation with the kid. So having access to that book in the school, that's what they mean by well-being of the students. We want to make sure that the student doesn't have access to this in a place where we can't control what they get access to.
Like a lot of times it's things like a character who is dealing with mental health issues or
Yes.
suicidality. Even if it's like in a helpful way, like showing like there's light at the end of the tunnel. The story has a theme of suicidality. We can't have it.
That suicidal kid might get the
12 reasons why,
idea
yes.
from a book.
Yeah.
I read it once.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
go back.
Yeah, I was like,
Ugly
For
chart.
those of you who didn't look at the last slide, anybody want to guess which state leads the country in challenge books for this teacher?
Florida.
Florida! You get a banned book, it's The Giver. You're also number one in the
Am I gonna get arrested? I own that.
well, we can
Yes,
also look at what county.
A book that was read to me by my teacher in
Again, agreed, yes.
Yes.
I've read it 3 times. So I go to jail.
And what
Florida,
county
Texas,
has the suits
Nebraska, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, they're all leading the way. And the amount of challenges to books in not just schools, but public libraries, has grown exponentially since 2022. And the reason behind that is several-fold. But it is mostly that there is a website that people who want to find challenged books can just go to, and that we've never read the book, they can just download a copy and then go to their school district and challenge ad hoc. And that is not counting the laws that have been put in place in different states. And we're gonna talk about the different states and some of the laws that they have enacted.
I'm actually on the challenge book committee for our school, and we just had a challenge from a parent for Anti-Racist Baby. I don't know if anybody knows that book.
No.
But it basically showed an African-American child and how it's kind of the controversy between, are you born with religion, or do you get that from your parents and your environment? But the fact that it was that the author had kind of a view that you're sort of born that way, and we did ban it. So the recommendation was to ban it.
It's just crazy because, like, with all this censorship, it's like, their parents are just like, oh, we're just gonna censorship that, like, you just don't get to read these books.
It can only be read by a guidance counselor. It cannot be checked out by children.
But they let their children be on, like, social media and all this kind of stuff. They don't understand, but they let them have a phone and let them be allowed to get on the internet. Why are you banning books in schools when you can literally look
it's
it
a
up?
5-year felony if I read a book that is on the banned school list.
Felony?
And
we should have told you that before we actually read that book. Why do you think we didn't read that book?
This is free K till it's backwards, right? They'll never catch me up. They'll never take me alive.
HB 1069 is also.
Please let her sign a waiver.
It is the law that the Florida legislature passed, and it is incredibly vague.
Very vague.
The Bible fits that.
Yeah.
Yes, so
Any Bibles.
the website I talked about earlier, that's booklooks.org, and an organization called Moms for Liberty are leading the charge on banned books in
If
Florida.
that group has no haters, I am dead.
Anybody want to guess? Somebody over here, like I haven't heard from you guys over here. What county in Florida do you think is leading the state? Yes, over there.
Escambia County? Yep.
Oh my God, you are right. You get it. This is Billie Jean King. It has been challenged because Billie Jean King is gay.
What?
I had to take Sally Ride out of my classroom library. I'm not allowed to have Sally Ride because it mentioned in there that you know who was Sally Ride, those books. I had to take that out. It's banned. Sally Ride, she was gay. It mentions that she was gay.
Wait, what are they banning on Sally Ride?
She was gay.
She's gay.
She's gay.
Once again, spoiler alert, but okay.
Yeah.
You can't keep doing that.
Yes, Escambia County. I told you I had a slide for you. We had 3 dictionaries, 2 thesauruses, 8 encyclopedias, 2,800 books.
How many Bibles, Mike?
I do have to say, I do love the fact that Bill O'Reilly, who was for the law getting passed, has had his books banned.
Yes.
Included in there for us geeks, of course, we have Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, World War Z, Song of Fire and Ice, that's Game of Thrones, for those of you who haven't read the books.
Why Hitchhiker's
I'm sorry, what?
Why Hitchhiker's Guide?
I don't do the challenges, I'm not sure what they sound objectionable.
The Earth got blown up.
There's a lot of Bibles. There's a lot of
I mean, there's a lot of yeah, and there's a lot of sex symbols in it.
You could say, like, has it, like, anti-capitalist thing, you really.
100% anti-capitalist.
Like,
Yeah.
you do not have to be very specific with these books. You can just say anti-American.
It's also
It's a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
They also might be opposed to people hitchhiking. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. No, my American soul, please.
some of our favorite superheroes: Wonder Woman, Black Panther, Sandman, Batman. For those of you who like anime or manga, excuse me, My Hero Academia, Naruto, and Soul Eater.
Why My Hero Academia though? Like,
this woman right here, Vicky Baggett, do you know her?
Anybody?
I
Someone's
teach
gotta
first
know.
grade.
She's a teacher in a different county, but has challenged most of the books here in this county.
I've heard the name.
She's a teacher in this county? Do you know her?
I've encountered her at school board meetings.
Okay.
Which one is
She
your
was
stop,
one that
So hear me out.
Hecker book.
Water in a gas tank.
No, you don't put water in the gas tank. You put a little ball in the gas tank that way that it plugs up, and then when they get cold, it moves away and then goes back and
Hypothetically,
forth.
of course.
That's devious.
I'm just saying,
Just a little
like,
bit of sugar.
Gotta remember that one.
Just a little bit of sugar to gas tank.
and if you don't feel like you wanna go that far, just keep reducing the air pressure in the tires so that TPS sensor keeps going off. That's all I'm saying.
Just to be
a
annoying.
little bit. So that
We're getting a little off track.
A little off track, and by the way, just put a tire magnet on their drive shaft. That will drive people insane.
And once again, don't actually do anything.
It's all hypothetical.
Hypothetical.
So we
Definitely don't put a spark plug in their gas tank.
We already talked about it, and Tango makes 3, so we'll go on to the next slide. Texas, has anybody read Prince and the Dressmaker? It is an amazing book. I highly recommend everybody check it out because it's so delightful. A prince likes to dress up in women's clothing, and he finds a dressmaker, and they become friends, and she makes his dresses for him. It's got a beautiful story because the prince eventually, I'm gonna spoil it for you, gets outed as the prince while he is wearing the dress, and the king makes all of the royal guards also go in drag for a fashion show to support his son. It is a beautiful book about parents supporting their child's choice of lifestyle, and this teacher got fired in Texas because she had this book in her classroom and a kid checked it out, and her mom, or the child's mother, blamed the teacher for the child becoming transgender.
One book does not do that.
Yeah, in case anybody was wondering, I talked to a couple of my friends who are gay. They said they've never had watching heterosexual sex as so watching gay sex should not make you gay. Just throwing that out there. Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is a little unique in how they are going about banning books because they challenge the books and the school board never gets around to making a decision on it. And their excuse is, we're still researching it. So I don't know if you can tell, these books, I Am Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, I Am Martin Luther King Jr. They're adorable books. They're written by Brian Meltzer. It will take you all of probably 3 or 4 minutes to read. I don't know how long they need to read this book, but it was going on for years, which is effectively pulling it out of the classroom by
Because the
not
books are
making
pulled
decisions.
preemptively, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
While they're being challenged, and if they don't do the
They're
challenge.
pulled while they're being
then-
challenged, you know, pending, if they're found okay, they're put back, but
Right,
they never have to make a decision, so the book just stays going.
exactly. And you'll never guess why these 2 books. Well, you might. Does anybody want to guess? Somebody.
I don't know the issues.
You with a friend at the school board. You want to guess as to why one of these books is challenged?
Is it CRT?
Kind of. They think that pointing out that there was racism in the United States will make white kids feel bad about themselves.
That is exactly.
Which, congratulations, you feel bad.
For those of you that don't know, CRT is critical race theory
Yes, which is an advanced
Like
graduate level
class.
class
Like legal
theory Yeah, I was a history
And
major.
for the record, ever since I heard about the War for Independence, I felt bad towards Britain. I've never gotten over that.
Missouri.
I might be a Tory.
Missouri
Oh
also
man, makes
has.
it really feel bad for the Trojans.
Missouri also has a book ban that provide any graphic novel that contains sexual conduct or deemed harmful to a student is a class A misdemeanor, but they never define what is deemed harmful. So again, you're coming across teachers and librarians who have such vague language that if a book is challenged, if they don't pull it, they are getting threatened with jail time.
We're a 5-year felony.
Yes.
If we read a
That
book.
5-year felony hanging over your head can be very scary.
It's very scary.
Okay, this
Very
book I
scary.
understand because this book has nudity, it has sexual themes in it. Yeah, let's not give it to a second grader. But we don't show rated R movies to children either, but the movies are still allowed to.
I think you're getting ahead of
Are you,
Like,
no, you good?
Like-
No, yeah, you're right. Genderqueer is a perfect book for somebody who is having trouble identifying who they are. It's good for teenagers who are coming into their own sexuality to get an idea of, okay, what am I? Like, because as we now know, sexuality is a spectrum, right? And sometimes you just don't fit into one of the boxes that have been given to you. And Genderqueer is a very good book for people to read, not only if you're trying to figure out your own identity, but to give you empathy for the people who are going through that. And that's one of the other things that's important that we remember, that when you read books that have a different
Point of view.
you gain empathy for those people who are going through that problems. And to ban LGBTQ plus books is to take away the possibility that other people will also have empathy.
Man, imagine everything not being black and white.
Yeah, this is a flamer. Again, it is about a young man who is at a Boy Scout camp, and he's coming to grips with his own sexuality while he is there. One of the reasons it's banned, and this is very strange, the boys are having a masturbation contest at the camp, and they're all going into a Mountain Dew bottle, and whoever doesn't finish has to drink.
Okay. That never happened at Girl Scout camp. Is that what happened?
It's Limp Bizkit.
It is not, but,
Soggy biscuit, that's what it's called. Soggy
No,
biscuit.
no, it's called Gooey Cookie.
Gooey cookie and soggy biscuit is another one where.
everybody has Urban Dictionary. So the
You
argument.
guys know way more about this than we do.
So we have more banned books that we're gonna talk about, but I wanna get into the arguments as to why, people are challenging the books. The idea is, I don't want my child reading this, but what they're doing is effectively saying, I don't want my child reading this, and I get to decide what everyone else's children are reading also. When I was in second grade, I took a test, and I had the reading level of a 12th grader. I was not limited by my parents to what I could read because I was only in second grade. I had enough of a reading vocabulary where I could read a very detailed book. It's the same for all children. All children are not equal, right? Some kids can read at a higher level than other kids. So limiting the book to a certain age range might seem appropriate, but there are some kids who can handle that, right? And the only person who knows if that kid can handle it, hopefully it's the parents, but it could be the teacher or the guidance counselor or the librarian who knows the child and knows what they're, has an idea of what they're going through.
And there's the counterintuitive idea where a parent says, I don't want a school system parenting my child, so I want this book removed. And in the complete opposite aspect, as you remove that book, you are parenting someone else's, the school system is parenting now someone else's children, right? and so we shouldn't get to decide that.
Yeah. Good slide. Okay, we are going to talk about banned books a little bit more, but we do have a podcast. We're the Longbox guys. We are like a drunk history, but for comics. If you want to listen to us, if you hate this panel, you can avoid us with impeccable accuracy by listening to our podcast, because we will tell you where we will be, and you'll have the rest of the world to be at. We also have other panels going on. We're doing stupid supervillains and why we love them tomorrow. We're also doing
Nerd
karaoke tomorrow night in the ballroom over there.
Last Nerd Standing?
Last Nerd Standing is at 6 o'clock, and we have so many prizes.
So much stuff.
So many prizes. In
I
fact,
still have prizes in my car from the last time.
we have
Some DVDs that haven't left my back seat since we came last year.
Bring it back.
And then Sunday we're doing horrible stereotypes. But before we go on to the banned books,
I would also like to say, before he moves on to banned books, it is never too early to give us a 5-star rating in the Pensacola.
It's
You
very
can rate
easy.
all of the different panels that we're doing with 5 stars right now.
And then you
Right
just
now.
So they can give y'all bigger rooms and not keep striking you down.
and voila, it's done.
feel free to make that comment.
Make that comment on the discussion part.
Yes.
Before we go on to some other banned books, is there any graphic novels that you would like to discuss that you know have been challenged, that you would recommend to somebody?
Can I just ask one question? When you
Sure.
say challenged versus, is there a different challenge versus school challenge? Is there a general society challenge?
Well, some of these things are getting challenged in public libraries as well.
So are they taking them out of bookstores and
No,
everywhere?
they are not taking out
No,
books, so that's a
okay.
good point you make. That's one of the arguments for the people who are for banning books is, well, just because they can't go to the library and get it, they can still go online and get it. So we're not actually banning the book.
Okay, so you're talking about
We're-
schools and libraries versus,
Yeah. Places where people can get it publicly.
gotcha,
But,
okay.
but, you know, at the same time, if you're a low-income person, then going to a bookstore and purchasing these
Right.
books
Yeah.
may be a critical hurdle
Yeah.
that you can't jump.
Only allowing these books in bookstores is saying that freedom of thought is only for people with money.
Yeah.
And like, and for adults, because children do not have access to bookstores in the same way that adults do.
And also, the child may live in a place where it's very far from to a bookstore.
Like, public libraries are an institution in our society because they allow democratization of information and idea and thought. Like, yeah, do I believe that, Mein Kampf is a good book?
Look, this woman
No.
up here just came in and she's giving us a 5-star review.
Like, banning mentions of Hitler because he had bad ideas is not, like, that's not helpful. Democratization of thought is always beneficial.
Right,
You
and we
can't
all,
restrict that by money.
and you mentioned public libraries. I forgot to mention, there are a group of people out there who are realizing that libraries provide access to people. So they know they can't ban books in the different areas, so they defund the library and give them 0 funding so that they have to close down. In addition to that, that is one of the new forms of censorship that we're also
Can we
seeing.
just overthrow the government at some point?
Like, please. Yeah, this November.
Yes,
Yes.
going out and vote is how we go out and we change things, but it's not just big elections, you gotta think about the little elections, because those are the people making the decisions in your small area.
And when it comes to censorship, voting for your school board
Yes.
is much more important than voting for president.
Huge.
There's a book that I'd like to mention real quick.
Sure.
Here's a book that most of us know about, The Diary of Anne Frank. It is one of the most censored books you will ever read, because they took out all the stuff about her going through her cycle and learning that kind of stuff. But it is something that we learn about, we used to learn about in 6th grade.
What's this again?
Diary of Anne Frank.
Yes. I meant cycle.
Come on. The cycle, you know exactly what a cycle is, dude. I'm trying to be nice. But when you think about what we actually get versus what she actually wrote, it's a lot, it's not as detailed. It doesn't go into how they had to deal with those certain types of things. Because a sixth grader reading that, a sixth grade boy reading that is not gonna like that. So we still get some of the content, we still get the experience, but we're not getting her exact words.
And hopefully the 6-year-old boy who doesn't like it does gain empathy for it.
Exactly.
I don't like that, but that seems horrible.
I agree.
They tend to do that with a lot of stuff about the Holocaust. Like
Yes.
they would rather teach the boy in striped pajamas because it is very scrubbed down from the truth of what things like mouse and night are.
Yes, and that's what we learned in school with night and, well, I'm speaking as a Okaloosa County educated woman. I read Night, Diary of a Young Woman, all of those things in elementary school. I mean, not in elementary school, in middle school. And then when we got up to high school, we did get exposed to other things. But when our school tried to have Kite Runner as one of the books suggested for the advanced English class in 11th grade, a parent got very upset and went to the news to get that book banned. So, and this was within the past 15 years. So, it's getting, focusing on local will help you understand what's going on in your area.
And also, you know, if there's one person challenging it, then it's up to everyone else to be there and challenge the challenge.
Yes, you can't go to the school board meeting.
I don't think though that parents know that, like, the restrictions that we as teachers have gone through and the amount of books that I had to get rid of just because they weren't in Destiny. I don't think the average parent knows anything about that. They don't even know this is going on.
And that's why we run panels like this, to help get that word out.
I even learned, like, they're not even letting, I don't know if it's the new schools or if it's just like somewhere where I'm going to college at, but they mentioned that they're no longer allowed to have classroom libraries.
Yeah, in Texas.
Well, in
That's
Texas.
why the woman was fired, because she had a classroom library, and same in Florida.
Yeah.
They had to get rid of classroom libraries. There is the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. They have had some issues in the past, but they are a good resource. If you're looking for more information on banned books, you can go to their website. The most read graphic novel writer / artist is Raina Tellemeier. Yeah. Drama is one of the most challenged books in the country because it's two boys kiss in it. You have mentioned Mouse, another one of the challenged books. This, by the way, this cover is not allowed to be sold in Germany. It is banned. You cannot sell anything with a Nazi symbol on it.
A little side note there, I was actually flying through Germany one day and I got actually in trouble. I was reading a Sergeant Rock comic book on my iPad and a soldier came by and looked down on it, and because this old Sergeant Rock had depictions of Nazi symbols, I was actually breaking the law.
Plus, once again, you had forgotten to shave just on the.
I forgot to shave. I missed a spot shaving, kind of like that. But yeah, that soldier kind of gave me the look, and I immediately went over to Cash with a friendly ghost.
If you have any teenagers who are in a toxic relationship, this is a great book I recommend. Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me. It is not only about being in a toxic relationship, it's it also deals with teen pregnancy, an LGBTQ character. Fun Home is another autobiography.
Also a great musical.
Are You My Mother? It's still on the same side of Fun Home. I'm just going to go through these.
We're actually over by a minute, so.
Yeah, Baseball Saved Us.
I would go back.
Japanese Americans were in internment camps, just in case you didn't understand in America during World War II. That's why that was banned. Blankets, again, LGBTQ. Big Bad House, just because of this frame right here. It's a biography about a girl who went to Japan when she was a child. Here, you guys, if you want, these are good books to check out. We're over time, so we'll just go through all these. Everybody memorize these. There'll be a quiz at the end.
Or ask us, or email us and ask us.
Yeah.
Where can they email us, Elton?
LuckyBastard@longboxguys.com.
They can. And we'll send you the slide back.
We will send you the entire list of books that will put you in jail for reading for them.
Yes.
We love it.
I love breaking the law.
Bring it out, bring it out. Any quick questions? We are over time, but we're breaking the laws.
I just learned about like Heartstoppers. I didn't even know it was banned now.
Yeah,
And then that's me
Heartstoppers is definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Heartstoppers is
Yes.
so.
I understand that, but like, dang.
Yes,
Yeah.
go to your school board meetings, please, 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 please.
Be as annoying as these people are.
But
You
also-
have to out annoy them.
But also you need to go to your town meetings and make sure that libraries keep getting funded and that they don't get sent.
Yeah, and our local, it's funny, but also, don't forget to vote on those taxes. Like, do you agree with the 2% tax to fund the library? I see tax and I usually go no, but I'll read a little bit more, I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. So don't forget to read those.
Yes.
Any questions?
Any comments?
And
Or
actually
YouTube
write letters
videos.
to your representatives.
Yes.
Physical letters get way more attention.
I remember in like middle school, I think